For asset recovery in 2017 to revert current trend and successfully combat corruption in Nigeria. The inclusion of the civil society organizations in the nationwide discussion on the management and the UN absurd privileges for elected public officials and senior civil servants, including insisting on the public submission of asset declarations of the executive, legislative, and judicial officials. We call on the government to strengthen anti-corruption institutions, ensure adequate protection and encouragement for whistleblowers, and intensify media and public consciousness in demanding transparency and accountability in governance. Moreover, the violation of the Public Procurement Act 2007 continues to be done through the non-appointment of a National Procurement Council as required by law. The Federal Executive Council continues to arrogate to itself the powers to approve contracts in clear violation of the Public Procurement Act. This act of Federal Executive Council does not show a government that is ready to abide by the rule of law and ensure transparency in contract awards. We therefore call on the government to follow the law and set up immediately the National Procurement Council as the Act stipulates. The fight against corruption cannot be properly won in the absence of non-compliance of the Freedom of Information Act, FOI, as presently observed by various government agencies, including the Ministry of Justice. The judicial pronouncement that the FOI applies to states is very much welcomed. The judiciary must do more in applying sanctions on erring officials on the FOI Act. Unresolved cases of high-profile corruption allegations. While we are aware of the various commitments, including the 2016 Anti-Corruption Summit in London, open government partnership, and campaign promised by the present administration to combat corruption in all its ramifications, without fear or favor, we find it disturbing that official corruption is deeply embedded and fast becoming a permanent feature of whose subculture melts seamlessly into the public office holders' daily life. We are worried over the administration's continued unwillingness to exert appropriate sanction against high-profile erring officials, amongst others, which include salient but illegitimate re-engagement of the former chairman of the Presidential Pension Reform Tax Team, Abdul Rashid Mena, who was disengaged from service by the previous administration over 2.7 billion pension fraud. We recall, regrettably, Babachir Lawal, former secretary to the government of the Federation, attributed to have diverted and mismanaged about 12 billion Northeast Humanitarian Intervention Fund. The controversial effort by Ambassador Babagana Kingibe led Presidential Review Panel to siphon $44 million intervention fund belonging to the National Intelligence Agency that apparently led to the unjust and unconstitutional removal of the immediate past acting Director General of the agency, Ambassador Mohammed Dauda. Former Director of State Services, Boss Eta Ekpeyong, who allegedly partook in corruption and in the mismanagement of funds amounting to $9 million of $30 million operation fund from Sambo Dasuki, former National Security Advisor, who is enjoying protection from the DSS from arrest, and the alleged diversion of $21 million into private pocket by Director General of the Department of State Security Service, Lawal Musa Daura. We are concerned over the administration's emerging dwindling capability in handling high-profile corruption cases, giving chances to culprits to walk freely in the streets and positive signal to potential culprits to freely engage in corruption. We observe that the manner in which the systemic corrupt practices are encouraged and celebrated, especially in the public sector, if not rapidly addressed, will ultimately erode citizens' trust and confidence in governance and eventually reverse the gains and recorded progress from the anti-corruption fight in the country. Poorly motivated security personnel, faulty recruitment and selection processes in the security sector. We are bothered that the personnel of the armed forces, the police, and other intelligence agencies wallow in poor working conditions and inadequate equipment combined with poorly paid salaries without adequate insurance. In spite of the enormous work they do and risk to their lives on a daily basis, this creates low morale for personnel to fully engage in their duties. We are not unaware of faulty recruitment and selection processes in the nation's security forces, leading to situations whereby influential individuals determine who is recruited, throwing competence and qualification to the dust. Where this is not happening, the leadership of the security agencies monetize the recruitment process. This leaves us with a cash and carry security apparatus. Given the spate of kidnappings, massacres, and destruction of property across the country by insurgents, armed bandits, and other hoodlums, we observe that just upgrading arms and ammunition for the nation's security agencies will not help address the security challenges without getting citizens who are qualified, properly trained, and have passion for the job get into the security institutions. Inadequate security presence in communities and politically motivated killings. We are disturbed that in spite of low security presence to effectively secure citizens' lives and property at the national and state levels, a large number of security personnel and equipment are endlessly attached to politicians, government officials, networked individuals. This inadequacy of personnel and limited equipment have continued to pave way for recurring politically and other socially motivated conflicts, as exemplified by farmers and pastoralist violence across Benue, Taraba, Adamawa, and Kaduna states, cattle rustling in Zamfara state, militancy in the Niger Delta, and kidnapping across the country. While we condemn the lack of proactive initiative or appropriate measure by the concerned state governments to curb regular attacks and killings of innocent individuals or citizens, we call for urgent recruitment, better equipment, and training for security personnel, especially the police. We demand appreciable, proactive, and innovative interventions by state governments in partnership with the Nigerian police force in addressing these growing security challenges in their respective states. Poor implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals SDG. The Sustainable Development Goals, which was adopted by 189 countries on September 2015 during the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly, are a set of 17 goals and 169 targets leveled at improving development across the globe. Nearly 3 years after the adoption by world leaders, Nigeria is yet to fully commence implementation. There is still no strategic plan of action on implementation and harmonization of various state efforts on SDGs. The SDGs is still inadequately funded, and it appears from the 2017 National Voluntary Review Report that there are no concrete indicators for monitoring progress. We call on the Nigerian government to speedily expedite action towards the development of a harmonized strategic plan of action that will incorporate states' efforts. We further call for adequate funding of the SDGs to enhance effective implementation. Slow implementation of reforms in the extractive sector. The implementation reforms in the extractive sector has rather been very slow and not deep enough. Considering the absence of effective policy and legislative reforms that would institutionalize and make it sustainable, we call on government to expedite the implementation and institutionalization of reforms in the sector by ensuring that, one, the federal government reconstitutes the interministerial tax team and empowers it to implement recommendations from reports of NAETI. The government should also expedite action for the cleanup of Ogoni.
And also the presidential assent to the PIGP.
We are at the delays in legislative actions by National Assembly. Okay, did I miss that? Oh, sorry.